Wren in Seattle. Hey, Wren, what's up?
Oh, thanks for taking the call. One of your last callers sort of hit on what I was calling about. He was talking about, is there a gene for the richness? But Norman Goldman always talks about the long haul, that the Koch brothers, their father started the John Birch Society. We're in it for the long haul. Well, in the long haul, the last set of oligarchs, the kings and queens and nobility of Europe, essentially narrowed their gene pool so small they bred themselves out of the ability to control what they still had. The last, late 1800s and into the early 1900s, the hemophilia and insanity and all other things, because their gene pool, the same thing with all our oligarchs, the smaller that group gets, the smaller their gene pool is, because they only intermarry. So eventually they will, breed themselves out of the ability to control what they have.
Well, yes and no. One of the more common phenomena among the wealthy men in the United States is, much like Donald Trump, is that rather than marrying wealthy women, they are marrying
trophy wives.
Trophy wives, basically, supermodel kind of.
But if you look at a lot of them, though, they are marrying other, their spouses are within their social economic group.
Yeah, I think that this kind of thinking, Wren, there's a certain danger associated with this, because it leads down the road inevitably to something like eugenics. What's more curious to me, and what I think has a whole lot more reality with regard to all this, is how the experience of growing up rich warps your mind, how it alters your worldview, how it alters your view of others, how it alters your view of family, and how it changes particularly wealthy families where children are basically not, integrated into the family and well cared for. I mean, Donald Trump was sent off to military school when he was young because his father just couldn't deal with him. And so there's probably huge feelings of rejection and insecurity, which is a lot of what's driving his constant desire to be in attention, in front of everybody. And there's just, whereas, the Kennedy family was always very, very tight in that regard. Not to say that they're saints or anything. I mean, it's, but I think that
the Rose and her husband,
Rose and Joe,
Joe had a different outlook on life. I think part of that was, granted, they came from privilege, but they also came from only a generation or two separated from being "quote unquote" Black Irish.
That's right, from being dirt poor immigrants who were heavily discriminated against. You're absolutely right. And go ahead.
Well, and you also see the same thing you're talking about, how your perception of your upbringing. Well, it's the same thing I see in our military and our police. How great a percentage of my father, my grandfather, my uncles, and all that were police and/or military, and they term the rest of us as skells. They're
civilians.
They're not on the job, so they must be criminals.
Well, I'm not sure it's quite that, but I understand the phenomena you're discussing. In fact, there have been novels and TV shows about it, about multi-generational police officers and multi-generational military. And sometimes it's very, very healthy and very therapeutic and very part of a community. And, and other times it's part of okay, I'm part of the group that is,
but as a
unimpeachable.
Society, though, if you keep, if you have a large percentage of the military and the police and our security forces are multi-generational, pretty soon it's not like the the Egyptian army, they still have to get care packages from home in order to eat. They get paid so little. Yeah. So when the time comes, when the orders comes down and says shoot into that crowd, well, that crowd is somebody that just sent them a care package last week.
That's right. And this is the argument for community policing on the one hand, and this is the argument that you actually have to live in the community that you're policing. And it's also the argument, which raises a whole other set of issues about police pay, but it's also the argument for a draft.
Correct.
And I think that these are good and strong and important arguments, discussions for us to be having. And I support, as I've said many times on this program, the idea of a draft, and that the payment essentially for that year of service to your country, or 2 years as the case may be, I think probably one is enough, should be free education, absolutely free college, no matter what. and that it should be available to everyone. Wren, I got to move along, but thank you. Thanks for your contribution. It was an excellent one.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.